Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely pumped to unpack today's topic with you because we are dismantling a really common but totally hidden relationship pitfall. Have you ever walked into someone's house and it just feels warm and inviting? And then you walk into another house and it's just cold, tense. Even when the couple isn't actively fighting, you can just feel it in the air. Well, today we're going to break down that silence. We're looking at the underlying dynamics that literally freeze us out of our own homes.
So this brings us to a really fascinating question. Why do marriages grow cold, even when there's no major betrayal? We're kind of programmed by movies and TV to think that relationships only blow up because of, massive dramatic events or huge breaches of trust. But the source material we're digging into today shows a much more common reality. It's actually this silent, everyday erosion that destroys intimacy without a single raised voice. It's the tiny, structural missteps in how we communicate that just slowly turn down the thermostat.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The very first root cause of all this marital friction is something we're going to call the teacher trap. This happens when one spouse just subconsciously decides they need to educate, correct, or fix the other person. But here is the massive reality check. You didn't marry a student, and your partner, they definitely didn't marry a teacher. If you treat your spouse like someone who needs constant instruction, you instantly destroy the foundational warmth of your marriage. A teacher-student dynamic is inherently unequal, right? And equality is the exact thing your marriage absolutely needs to survive.
Just look at the stark contrast here. A teacher's duty is strictly to instruct. It's a completely one-sided top-down dynamic. A teacher has an obligation to impart knowledge, but they don't really have to consult with their students. But in a romantic relationship, that dynamic breeds instant resentment. On the flip side, the husband and wife dynamic is fundamentally equal. It's built entirely on respectful back-and-forth problem-solving. Spouses have to consult with each other to get through life. When you decide to play the teacher, you rip away that vital equality and just totally shut down any chance for open dialogue.
Now, what happens when the teacher spouse actually gets challenged? Well, we run straight into the danger of pretending. You see, when you view yourself as the great educator in the relationship, your ego gets completely wrapped up in always having the right answers. And let's be real, none of us always have the answers. But instead of just being vulnerable and admitting that, the teacher spouse pretends. They fake it. And as our source points out, that pretending is incredibly toxic to the health of your relationship.
In fact, there is an exact, highly predictable sequence to how this conversational failure plays out. Step 1. Your partner asks a question or brings up a problem, really just looking for a connection. Step 2, because of that inflated teacher ego, you pretend to know the answer. Step 3, since you're basically just guessing, you give this weird, awkward, or totally unsatisfying reply. And then, Step 4, frustration builds up and communication completely stops. Your partner realizes they aren't being heard, the vibe gets weird, and they just shut down. You've essentially broken the trust of that conversation.
So how do we avoid this trap? The source material offers what it calls the humble alternative. And honestly, it's so simple. When you don't know something, just admit it. The absolute most powerful thing you can do is gracefully say, you know what? I'm sorry, I actually don't have the answer to that right now. I wish I could help. Just let the ego go. It sounds super basic, but doing this immediately diffuses any tension or anger. Your partner feels respected by your honesty, and paradoxically, admitting you don't know something actually builds immense mutual trust.
But say you continually refuse to take that humble route. What happens then? Well, you end up with what we can call the cold home effect. And our source points out that this is shockingly common, especially among highly educated couples. When they hit this communication wall of pretense and lecturing, they don't always end up screaming and shouting at each other. They just stop talking entirely. The house gets eerily silent, one person retreats to listen to a podcast, the other mindlessly watches TV. The vital warmth of the home just completely evaporates, and you're left with this freezing, deeply uncomfortable silence.
And that chilling silence brings us to a really fascinating, honestly brilliant concept from the text, the friend affair. Now, usually when we hear the word affair, our minds immediately jump to physical or romantic betrayal. But the source redefines this entirely. You can actually have an affair simply by taking your allotted time and conversational energy and spending it all on outside friends. You are literally stealing the vital social energy meant for your household and handing it over to someone else, leaving your own home totally starved of connection.
To really grasp this, let's look at what a healthy energy flow actually looks like. Let's imagine you have a certain block of social energy, let's say it's 70% of your total capacity, that you use to interact with people. In a healthy relationship state, you might spend 40% of that energy deeply connecting at home with your spouse, and the remaining 30% outside with your friends or coworkers. And that's a perfectly sustainable ratio. Having outside social time is totally normal and good,
as long as it doesn't starve the marriage of the warmth and conversation it needs to actually thrive. But what happens when that balance flips into an unhealthy affair state? Say things are feeling a bit cold at home. You might start draining 50% of your total energy outside the house, bending to friends over drinks, giving all your best laughs, stories, and problem-solving to your buddies. That leaves a measly 20% for your spouse. So when you finally walk through your front door at the end of the day, you literally have no words left. You've given all your warmth away. You bring that coldness inside, and you effectively freeze your own relationship from the inside out. I really want to highlight a specific number here: 100%. The source text makes this point with absolute, unwavering certainty. When communication stops and that conversational energy stops flowing inward to the home, couples will drift apart. It is a 100% guarantee. Without that constant, flowing exchange of words, shared energy, and mutual problem-solving, the relationship simply cannot and will not survive. Complete silence is the ultimate relationship killer.
Okay, so how on earth do we fix this? Well, if you strip away all the complex therapy buzzwords and overly complicated relationship advice, it all boils down to one fundamental philosophical fix: respect. I know, it sounds almost too basic, right? But true, unconditional respect is literally the only key that can restart the flow of communication. Because when you genuinely respect someone, you listen to them differently, and that, naturally, is what warms up a cold home.
Now, understanding that philosophically is one thing, but how do we actually apply it in real life? The source gives us a few concrete rules of respect. First, you absolutely must acknowledge your partner as an equal individual. That means no more teacher-student dynamics. Ever. Second, you need to actively listen to their words, instead of just silently plotting how you're going to correct them. And third, never, ever look down on them because of a difference in education, background, or income. Treating your partner as an equally valuable human being is the absolute engine of a functional, warm household.
I want you to really let this quote from the source material sink in for a second. Even a beggar's words can be heard if you respect them. I mean, what a profound illustration. If you carry genuine respect in your heart, you unlock the ability to truly hear, deeply understand, and connect with absolutely anyone. And hey, if you can do that for a total stranger, you definitely need to do it for the person you married. If communication is failing at home, it's a glaring symptom that this core respect has somehow slipped away. Restore the respect, and the conversation will naturally follow.
Ultimately, this whole thing comes down to a fundamental value system about human connection. Deep conversation is infinitely greater than wealth and gold. The text makes this incredibly beautiful point. Even immense riches or physical beauty, they pale completely in comparison to a genuine conversational connection. Think about it. If you have all the money in the world, but you're sitting in a freezing, silently tense house, you essentially have nothing. But when you achieve that deep, respectful dialogue where you truly understand one another, you wouldn't trade that warmth for anything in the world.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most provocative thought of the day. Ask yourself honestly, are you trying to be a spouse or are you trying to be a teacher? As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you reflecting on your own daily interactions. Are you consulting with your partner, or are you lecturing them? Are you bringing your best conversational energy back home, or are you accidentally having a friend affair and leaving all your warmth out at the bar? Choose to be an equal partner. Choose humility over pretending, and just watch the warmth rush back into your home. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you some powerful tools to take forward.